Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back, lovely people. Today we'll be looking at the pros and cons of raising children in the UK and abroad, particularly Malaysia. If you are someone who is considering leaving the UK or the West and would consider Malaysia as an option, then this will be really useful for you.
Yeah, and if you have watched some of our other videos, you will be aware that we have been out of the UK for 8 years now. And we moved out when our daughter Sophia was 8 and our son Khalil was 5. Now, naturally, we had people close to us that were concerned about uprooting our children and moving them into unfamiliar territories. Some actually felt that our decision was precipitous, and others thought that it was the best decision for us all.
That's right. People were more concerned for their education and not having extended family around and how they would cope. But honestly, we've found that moving them out of the UK has been absolutely brilliant for their holistic development.
I think we need to explore both sides in order for you to understand why. Let's have a look at the pros and cons of bringing our children up in the UK and abroad. So let's start off with the pros of raising them up in the UK.
So having family around is probably the main advantage of the UK. For us and for the kids really enjoyed having their cousins around at the weekends, spending time with them. They did so much together, and it was a really good support network with aunties, uncles, grandparents around. They even learned Gujarati as well. Well, Sophia did, for a few years.
Not very well, but yeah. Also, having a good education system. I think, obviously, we've mentioned this in our other videos, but I think the foundations were set there. So reading, writing, numeracy, all of that. I think UK is ahead in terms of the education and the structure.
There's a really good systemized madrasa program as well, Monday to Friday, so 5 to 7 after school hours. And that's really well developed. Teachers are great as well. And there's so many new madrasas that have opened up since then, since we left.
Yeah, and it's always developing and changing, isn't it? It just gets better and better every year. So that's really good to hear. They've got modern techniques and pedagogy as well to engage the children.
Yeah, not like what it was like when we went to madrasa. It has changed a lot since then.
It's dreading.
Yeah, yeah, and there's no more sticks, thank God.
Thank God for that. Yeah, I also feel like UK offers opportunities that they probably wouldn't get in abroad, possibly because, I think eventually our kids will probably move back to the UK, as we mentioned, and so their jobs will be there. That's where they will develop. And if they want to move out of the country, that's fine. But I think generally, being British, for them, the opportunities are there. Now on to the disadvantages of bringing them up in the UK.
Okay, so I think influences and peer pressure is probably the main disadvantage or con of raising kids in the UK. Just growing up, from my own experiences, I know how difficult it was, and I didn't want my kids to go through that. Hanging about on the street corners, getting up to no good, these are all things that they're protected from here because they spend most of their time with us. They go out with us, they meet friends with us. They do sometimes go out with friends on their own, but it's usually in a mall. And we do have a time limit. We make sure they're back at a certain time.
Yeah, I also feel like people are very focused on what they have instead of what the experiences that they can acquire. So there's a sort of mentality of keeping up with the Joneses almost. I'm not saying everyone, but generally you do feel a strong sense of that. Like people compare as to what kind of car you drive or what kind of house you have or what kind of clothes you wear, and you still hear those conversations where oh, I can't wear that outfit because I wore that last year at this wedding, and it's like oh, you're being ridiculous. But I think there's still that pressure, and I suppose that ties in well with the peer pressure as well, because kids compare like, oh, you've got this bag or you've got these shoes, and so they feel like
designer wear. I remember that pressure when I was a kid, just making sure you had your D&G and your Armani clothes, and people judging you if you didn't, so that's definitely a good point. Also, I feel that sometimes traveling makes you more open-minded.
In the UK, and again, let me just say not everyone, but people are quite stuck in their own ways, and I think that's down to culture, right? You do find that there's certain practices that might take place that have got nothing to do with religion, but because they've always done it, or like for example, I have to invite this person to our wedding, even if you want a small wedding, because they invited me like 25 years ago at their grandson's wedding. It's just ridiculous, honestly. It gets too much.
So yeah, we talked about like the influences when they're young with their friends, but cultural influences are also a big disadvantage in the UK.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's look at the advantages of bringing our children up in Malaysia.
All right, so just them having this new experience in a new country, learning a new culture, new routines, new celebrations that they've learned, which they weren't exposed to in the UK. They've also bumped into so many different people from all walks of life, from diverse communities. We've got friends from Europe, from Africa, from Asia, and it's been a really nice experience for them to get to know them all.
Yeah, I think they have a broader perspective on life as well, and I think that's due to the friendships that they have. Also learning new languages like Arabic, Mandarin, Bahasa, and so they're also more accepting of differences between the other children as well. So for example, I remember when we first started at school, there was a performance going on with some boys involved, and I remember watching and thinking, wow, if you performed like this in the UK, you'd probably get murdered by the rest of the kids.
It was salsa dancing.
So it was salsa dancing. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And maybe less so now, but I know when I was a teacher in the UK, there's kids who were like, I'm not doing that. But yeah.
Yeah, there's obviously more opportunities to travel here as well.
Yeah.
We've got AirAsia and budget airlines and you can get to neighbouring countries for as little as 20, 30 pounds, even less sometimes. So it's been really nice going to Cambodia, visiting Vietnam, all these neighbouring countries. Again, learning new culture. Yeah. Every time we go travelling, it's just a really nice experience for them to learn.
I think also in the UK now it's so hard to get an appointment to see the doctor. Now here, luckily, you can walk into a doctor's surgery and get an appointment straight away and be seen. So that's something that's been really good for them. So every time they're ill, you're not worrying, waiting for weeks for the next appointment. They're there, they're sorted, and it's all good. Yeah,
I think Malaysia is a really safe country as well. So we're not scared of letting our children travel somewhere on their own. So there's been times where they've caught a taxi, a Grab, on their own, and we can track. Actually, we can track it on our phones to see where they're at. So safety for me is a big plus. You just feel safe walking around the streets.
Yeah.
I know in the UK there was many times where I used to, even when I'm on my own or with others, walking on the streets and you see a gang of youths coming towards you or on the other side of the road, you just want to cross the road. You don't want to be anywhere around them.
Yeah, and I think where we live as well, we have security guards downstairs, so people cannot come up without getting permission from us, and the security guards will always question you. So they're always protected. I'm not saying that crime doesn't happen here, it does, but I think it's less, so you feel a lot more safer here as well.
So another advantage of living in Malaysia is the Grab app. Now, I did speak earlier about the taxi, catching a taxi through the Grab app, but it's not only for taxis, it's also for ordering food and ordering groceries as well. And when we're not around and we want our children to order some food using the app, it's so easy. We just transfer money to their app and they're able to just, click on anything that they want to order and it's there within half an hour. Yeah, it's so easy.
You can probably do that in the UK as well, but I just think this is just a lot easier. It's a lot more sophisticated than the UK. I think also parenting influences from other parents is a huge advantage because generally, I found that parents in Southeast Asia are very highly focused on their kids' education, and so they push their kids a lot. And so because our children see that, they see their peers and their friends studying hard, working hard, they feel the need to do the same. So that makes our life a lot easier.
Yeah, there is a fair amount of competition at school as well between the kids, and they just push each other to try and do a little bit better, which I never really got to see in the UK. It was always frowned upon in a way.
I used to get called SWAT at school if I put my hand up to answer a question. That was quite off-putting actually, but yeah, you don't get that here. I think they're all encouraged to work hard and they love that competition. Also, school offers a lesson called Agama, which is basically Islamic studies. That's a law for all schools, right, to offer Islamic studies for Muslim students, which is brilliant. I mean, it's not so advanced, but at least you're still getting the reminders of, you know, the foundations of Islam every time they study.
Yeah, so we need to top that up. So we do top up with online madrasa for the kids. They've been learning Quran, they've been learning the surahs, and obviously we have somebody in the UK that teaches them online. And because of online teaching and tutoring now, it's so easy to have that madrasa program for them. Yeah. So let's talk about some of the disadvantages of bringing kids up in Malaysia.
Okay, I think maybe adjusting to the new customs. So when they first moved, our daughter internalizes her stress sometimes, especially when she was younger. And we found that when she was nervous or when we were making a new move, she would start sleepwalking. So
Our son as well, Khalil, started doing that as well.
For a little while, yeah. And I know that when they tried to be put on a brave face, but I think that they were internalizing that stress. So adapting to the new culture and social norms can take some time.
But new school,
yeah,
making new friends,
yep,
all of that does have an effect on them.
But the kids are generally when they're younger, they're quite resilient. So
they easily adapt.
Yeah, I think when you move when they're younger, it's a lot easier. I think when they get older, they're leaving their friendships behind. And we have found actually that friends who moved when their kids were teenagers,
they've really struggled.
Yeah, they did struggle, and I think they sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes build a sort of resentment towards their parents if they're not happy with the move as well.
Yeah, so the other one is finding the right school for the children. Alhamdulillah, we've been lucky in that sense. You know, the school that we worked at, our kids went to the same school, so it was really convenient for us, and they adapted really well to the school, and we feel that they've developed really well at that school as well. It's given them so many opportunities to shine. But I know friends that have experimented with certain schools, and they've been moving schools from year to year, just trying to find the right one for their kids. Obviously fees do vary as well, so you know, bearing in mind that some are a lot more expensive than others, especially like some of the low tier or middle tier schools. Although the fees are less, it does mean that sometimes the quality of the education might not be there.
And I think because of that, some of our friends have opted to homeschool their kids as well, and which has worked out really well for them. So there is a choice, but you know, if you're willing to sell a kidney for a really expensive school, there's that option. Yeah, I think also leaving, obviously we've mentioned this a few times, but leaving friends and family behind, that's a huge disadvantage for them. But like I said, our kids were young, so it was easy for them to adapt.
Okay, so we touched on this point earlier, and obviously with Malaysia, we found that there aren't as many systematic madrasa programs, especially for expats. You know, there are plenty for locals, but because they're taught in Malay, it's not really the best for us kids. We found one which was quite far away, and it was ideal for expats, but the problem was the distance, you know, like just driving 30-40 minutes. It was a little bit unsustainable, so we decided to get our kids taught by an online tutor for their madrasa.
From the UK. I'm sure there'll be some here as well, but I think somebody just recommended her and she's been brilliant.
So despite the qualms and worries our close ones had about moving abroad, their opinions have certainly changed now. Hearing and seeing our experiences, people now tell us it's the best decision that we made.
Yeah, our children still miss their cousins and family members, but luckily technology has allowed them to keep connected, and our visits back to the UK means that they get a better and rich experience and time with their family members.
Definitely. When we ask our kids what they miss most about the UK, family is usually on top of that list, followed by a dirty doner kebab or burger from the local takeaway.
We know one day our kids will move back to the UK, but they will look back on this experience very fondly because, alhamdulillah, it has really bonded us as a family, as we have so much more valuable time together here.
Okay, so let's finish off for today. Please like, comment and subscribe, as we love reading your comments and appreciate everyone's input. We've had a number of you contacting us through our Instagram page and by email, and it's always lovely to hear about your experiences too. So until next time, Assalamu alaikum.